Hello, friends. Elise Adamkara here for Adamkara Astrology. Welcome. Welcome and blessed spring equinox to you. We are now out of the darkness, and the day and the night are equal, and we are re-emerging into a new light from the shadow, from the abyss, from the confusion, from the everything, everywhere, all at once, which is Pisces, specifically the last degrees of Pisces. This week is one of the largest astrological weeks we have ever experienced, and the transformations are just coming hard and fast, which will really culminate when Pluto ingresses into Aquarius. It has been in Capricorn since 2008. And Pluto, the planet of transformation, of transmutation, the higher octave of Mars, whereas Mars is the ego will, Pluto represents the soul's will. And if you are confused as to whether or not the soul exists or that spirit exists, to the point where we all have our own individual spark, spirit spark, divine spark, and that it comes attached to its own weighty will of soul, spirit will, soul will, with Pluto, well, you're not alone. And also, I think that is a general something that humanity is just going to have to deal with. This whole thing of semantics, is Pluto a planet? Is it relevant or not? That is humanity, that is consciousness fighting the knowingness of the actuality of spirit and soul, and that yes, it has its own will, its own way, and its own power to transform, and that our real power does come from embracing this power to fully sit in that transformation and to reemerge as the phoenix on the other side, fully embodied, fully empowered, and something new that we have not yet experienced. A little bit of what has been happening leading up to this new moon in Aries. The new moon takes place at 0 degrees 55 minutes of Aries. The conjunction between the sun and the moon, which is the new moon, is exact on March 21st, 2023 at 1:23 p.m. Eastern Time. Before this, we did have the moon went in Pisces conjunct Neptune during the weekend. And we also have had the moon square Mars right before this ingress into Aries. Had the moon in Pisces, the end of Pisces, sextile Pluto before the moon made its ingress into the first sign of the zodiac, Aries, and before Pluto leaves the last degrees of Capricorn. This is really, really showing us how much we have been through, how everything, everywhere, all at once really does exist. It's a tremendously difficult thing to account for. And yet there is an inner knowing and an inner peace that comes when we take that step forward, leaving behind the shadow of confusion, of accounting for all the things that have already been, and take upon ourselves, follow that thread, that impulse to embody, to manifest into something new, someone new, something that accounts for the shadow from which it comes and has taken upon itself to leave that past behind in order to fully emerge in this renewal cycle. It's also about letting go of things that have been holding us back emotionally, spiritually, things that are karmically inherited, especially with that moon square Mars and then that moon sextile Pluto. It's like that moon sextile Pluto is all about having this deep awareness of our emotional nature, of our security needs, of our intuition, of the importance of spiritual continuum and constant communication between spirit and ourselves as individuals through our emotions, through our inner knowing, through our inner, compass. So we were given this moment before this ingress into the new, the power and vitality that experiencing and expressing profound emotions in order to transmute them into action. Emotions, energy, motions, okay? So before we embody it, we first, had this impulse to just like sit in this incredible feeling, this cross current of our inner emotional, psychic, intuitive authority, and it's being supported by the will of spirit to allow us to transform and leave behind that which we do not need to take with us into the new cycle, into our new selves, into our new identity, our new path, and what it is that we're bringing anew to earth. Not replicating things that have been before, not copying ideas, creative energies, impulses, insights, and then disseminating them and thinking that that is your one purpose. No, we are all about renewing into something that has never been experienced or expressed on earth yet. So I hope that this gives you some feeling of peace and ease as to what it is you may or may not have been experiencing over this past week. And now we come to this moment of newness, of renewal, and embodying our actuality, our individuality, and understanding that it is, in fact, divinely given. It is the divine spark breathing its first breath as an individualized entity outside of the nebulous spirit goo of Pisces, of spirit. And knowing that its potential and the road ahead has a greater pull, a greater impulse. Our excitement in experiencing it and embodying it and exploring it and being the creator of it far outweighs the fear of wanting to be or needing to be tethered into the past and in past conditions and conditioning that really hold us back, from individuating and actualizing. It also is a reemergence of understanding that your existence is something for you to create, to embody, and to sculpt, as opposed to, leading with, well, this is how I've been formed by my environment. This is how I've been formed by what I've received or inherited, whether it be materially, spiritually, karmically, emotionally, etc. This is a time, so please do a new moon ritual. Please meditate on what it is that you're bringing to you and through your own inner knowing, through the force of yourself, and know that that is what you're here to do. So this is all about planting the seeds of what you're here to do, not what you were conditioned to do, not what you thought was possible to do, not what your fears dictate you have to do. It really is about embodying this knowingness and this power of self-creation, of self-individualization, self-realization, and being able to bring about to you, I love this, where Venus, which is in its domicile, its earthen domicile of Taurus, and the lunar north node, they had a conjunction at 4 degrees Taurus, which I will say, the Sabian symbol for, very exciting, the Sabian symbol for that 4 degrees of Taurus is a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And that image is all about recognizing and embodying the bridge between the divine and the earthly, and the riches that come when you value yourself as such, okay, and value what you think and do and feel and go about integrating and making real, making tangible that divine bridge. The riches that come to you, that you attract, that you manifest by linking the celestial with the earthly nature. So let's just jump into this Aries, this 0 degree Aries, 0 degree 55 minutes Aries new moon that is exact at 1:23 p.m. Eastern time on March 21st. Again, we're stepping away from this feeling of just being in the spirit emotional goo and just trying to account for everything all at once, and then just turning that into the impulse, letting that transform into the impulse to actualize and to take action with your own individual sovereignty and identity. So from that sitting in the discomfort of the emotionality, we were asked to sit in that deep awareness of our emotional needs and nature, our psychic nature, our connection to spirit, and our connection to all of continuum through mother energy, both physical mother as well as spiritual mother and source, and allowing to transform and renew the deep emotional needs and processes through integration, through receptivity, and allowing the limiting habits of these karmic inheritances, past emotional pain and fears to integrate into a powerful source of new beginning. The strength and power that emerges when we stop repressing, rejecting, and resisting our inner knowing and emotional needs. They're one and the same, by the way. The karmic condition that we are moving away from is light breaking into many colors as it passes through a prism. That is what we were experiencing when we saw all of our life and our lives and our emotional impulses and overwhelms and unaddressed needs and the things that we've been repressing, and our spiritual insights and our spiritual connection and our feeling of divinity and that feeling of being overwhelmed and over processing and over analyzing, because you're being exposed to all the multi-dimensions and all the actualities of the infinite all at once, everything all at once. We're moving away from everything all at once, and from the fear to want to step forward as an individual and bring something new, and instead just being like, no, I'll stay here in the nebulous goo. I'll just be, one. I'll just be, one of the fish in the sea, instead of being like, I'm the insert Aries 1 Sabian symbol. A woman has arisen out of the ocean, a seal embracing her. So this symbol recognizes an emergence, a new awareness, identity, consciousness coming to light, embodying the power of self-identity and self-actualization, claiming your power, your place and ability to be yourself, and to make your mark on the world, your own unique individual mark, experienced, expressed, and executed through you. Stepping out of the past environment, out of the shadow, stepping out of uncertainty, overcoming that feeling of being daunted by the task of, having everything, everywhere, all at once be what you came from, and instead being like, nope, individual, God spark, right here, right now, fully embodied. And this image of the woman emerging from the sea and being embraced by the seal, which is, sea life, to me really speaks to the fact that when we leave the spirit goo of Pisces and we individuate into Aries, once that initial adrenaline rush wears off a little bit, we are aware that we're walking with, baby deer legs, Bambi legs. And so the being embraced by this sea creature that represents the ocean and all of these spirits, that came before, is being warmly embraced and supported by spirit, by mother, while we individuate and we find our bearings, we find our feet, we find our voice, so that we are fully actualized and feel empowered to do the work and go on the journey that we came here to do individually. To remind us that we are still connected to spirit as we have this experience of individualization, as we explore the individual will and the individual power, the power of individual will. And this is just to remind us that this is one of many new beginnings, and it is one that is taking place at a time that is so necessary. We need each individual to take this power of rebirth, this new cycle, to heart, and to understand what was shown to them while they experienced, the replays of many a lifetime, many fears, many everything all at once experiences, because it's informative. And also we get to take that into account, and we get to integrate it and allow it to fuel our new journey. We don't deny, we don't need to repress the emotionality and how emotionally and psychically and intuitively affected we are by those experiences. We are in our new self that we are creating, informed by them. We are not enslaved by them. We're not tethered by them. And so this time speaks of a very delicate balance of stepping into the new and making sure that you continually check in with that feeling of embrace of what came before, so that you can have the start of your new journey and your new identity be supported by what came before. You're not doing it in isolation. You're not doing it from a disconnected space. Nor are you tempted to say, I'm actually really scared about, these past feelings of failure, of the uncertainty, or of my ability to account for everything all at once. And so I'm just going to dissolve back into the nebulous goo. I'm just going to let myself, splinter apart fractally and be subsumed or, recycled through the matrix, okay? This is a moment of stepping out of the matrix, of seeing the matrix from your own POV over many lifetimes, that which is yours, that which is not yours, and stepping into the embodiment of the power of individual sovereign self, and the need for that new identity, and the protection that ego gives us from, all of a sudden being reacclimated or, kind of just sucked back into the matrix and to the everything all at onceness. So we are in a seeding state. We are planting the new seed. So please, if you're planting something, great time to plant your herbs. Great time to plant your new intention. Of course, if you do want to know where this new moon falls on your chart, please contact me at anamkaraastrology.com. I'd be very excited to have a personal reading for you, because this is really setting up our entire new plan and existence, not just for the new year, not for the entire year, but really for the next 3 years, and then for the next 20 years when Pluto moves into Aquarius. I also have to say, lastly, that this moon in Pisces that squared Mars in the late degrees of Gemini, which only got out of its retrograde shadow a little over a week ago. And Mars has been in Gemini since August, end of August, beginning of September of 2022. It then went all the way to 25 degrees of Gemini, and it went retrograde on October 30th, 2022. And it retrograded all the way back to somewhere between 8 and 5 degrees of Gemini. So that entire time between October 30th 2022 until January 12th, 2023, we were going back over our actions, our inactions, and the ego-driven motivations behind those actions and inaction. And I just feel that the moon making contact, this square contact with Mars after it has, gone past where it, retrograded and relived and revised and got this new understanding of why did I do that? What kind of information did that give me? Or what kind of new information or facts do I really feel I need to gather in order to make an informed, decision and action on things? This whole just replaying of the ego of the ego and what's been transpiring from this ego will for 6 months essentially. I mean, it just feels like flipping forever, more than 6 months. It's like 6 months ish, right? I don't know, I can do math, I promise. But it really, really, really is giving us a bunch of downloads as to what escaping the matrix feels like for us, and how it's a multi-step process, and it really needs to be tuned into what is coming from within. And this happens. This actually, like, literally the moon squares Mars at 8:55 a.m. The same day as the new moon in Aries takes place. And that square is the emotions and the need to connect and integrate with spirit through our emotions and our intuition at odds with our ego will and our need to move forward and our need to just, do and be on both sides of things, all sides of things, which is very Aquarius. It's very duplicitous. I don't know. To me, it feels like the moon challenging this like tendency to be dualistic, of the ego, the duality of the ego will and its significance, the duality of, having an angel and a devil on each shoulder, right? And it really just brings us back. It brings me back, this Gemini Mars whole situation. And granted, I do have Chiron and Lilith conjunct in Gemini, and it's the only planets that I have in Gemini. I feel like this whole download before we make this ingress and this new moon into Aries, and this really, really new cycle begins, this new self emerges, is really hearkening us back to the fact that, 6,500 years ago, when we had a change in how our civilizations were, okay? This is like right before the going into the Bronze Age, essentially, where, we started to move away from matriarchal, egalitarian, non-hierarchical societies, and we tuned in to the cycles of our emotions and of consciousness and the connection to what came before and how we are feeling now before making an informed decision. A decision and actions that are informed by our emotions, not ones that negate them. And that is a process that first we started to depart from during the age of Gemini, when we started caring more about reason, when we started to pay attention and allow our whole society and human experience to be dictated by the left brain, essentially. And we stopped listening to our inner emotions, to things that are thought of irrational, responses to things or insights about things. We needed them to be factual. We needed them to be written down, and so that we could reference them and communicate them. And this whole just leaving behind the value of having an egalitarian society and living in a human experience that not just accounts for the inner emotional life and spiritual connection, to make sure that the individual is fed and that all of the community is fed, and that we honor the cyclic nature and the ebb and flow between the sun and the moon, and not, just say, all right, we're just going to do stuff for the sun, because that's literally what happened. We literally had civilizations that were honoring and worshiping sun god, a warrior like sun god, and that came west and demolished these matriarchal, matrilineal, matristic, I guess some people say when they don't want to talk about it just being mom related. Basically, we had these societies that were worshiping the earth, moon, goddess, mother connection as the great teacher, and the need for a receptivity and of honoring the information that comes from within, from our own subjective experience, experiencing them and sharing them in community, and then having the whole community benefit from the abundance and the replenishment, the continual replenishment that comes from earth and water and spirit and the divine, and not just relying on that which can be conquered under the sun, that which can be taken by force, and from the hierarchical power systems that emerge when we stop caring about the qualitative aspects of life and our own emotional and psychic receptivity, and rely entirely on what we can achieve with our rationale, with our words, and with our sword. So that's what we were checking in on. We were checking in on how much of this profound emotional discomfort, how much of our, past life lineage and current life emotional experience has been dictated to us by, or has been a product by, the shift in human consciousness that we have been experiencing for the past 6,500 years, which you could basically refer to as the left brainification of human experience and society, and certainly an overvaluation of the intellect over what our emotions need, what our body needs, and how our emotions and our body are linked to the earth, and the need to respect it and to be a part of it, to honor your place in continuum, as well as try to control nature, outthink nature, that's the real crazy thing about the left brain, about the ego, about the intellect, is that it will look for ways to overcome, to conquer, and to make certainty out of things that are uncertain. The certainty comes from the inner knowingness and the certainty of how you feel about something, not what you think about something. But if you don't have any time to just feel and feel your place in things and to get your bearings on an emotional level, well, then you're constantly acting on uncertainty and pretending like you're certain about it. Let's move away from that, shall we? Anyway, again, I am Elise Anamkara for Anamkara Astrology. Blessed, 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 blessed spring equinox to you. For those of you who celebrated Ostara, the pagan Gaelic holiday recognition of this new emergence into new life, into new being, into new certainty and individuation and purpose that is not just supported but fully embraced by spirit. And the profound excitement and urge that we have to continue on our individual journey, empowered and blessed by both spirit and ego that protects the individual from blending in and becoming a part of everything, everywhere, all at once, instead of carving its own path and embodying its own divine will to be. Again, Elise Anamkara from Anamkara Astrology. Until next time, all the bless.